Quentin Jr. But yeah, so basically, I'm going to be doing this. This is a redo of What If Deku Was a Werewolf. Now, this is going to be titled What If Deku Was a Omega Werewolf. Basically, Deku's going to be a werewolf, but the only difference is that Deku's going to be a full-blooded werewolf. Both of his parents are going to be werewolves. But basically, I'm going to be taking inspiration from multiple other werewolf TV shows, movies, and books. Basically, trying to put in a bunch of lore and twist and turns into the story, making it interesting and leaving it off on cliffhangers then and there, so I can make the story more interesting and make you guys yearn for part 2 or part 4 or whatever. So yeah, so basically, guys, we start our story mostly at most times, like when I'm doing an ancient one, I start off at Deku's legacy or his ancestors' point of view, or on Deku's birthday or his first, day on Earth. But I'm going to be starting this off back in time, about 500 years before Deku was ever thought of, or even his family was even remotely close to giving birth to him. So we start our story off on a werewolf named Josiah. Basically, this werewolf will be a full-blooded and also a Omega. Now, basically, Omegas... So, it's going to be 3 different types of werewolves in this universe. The first one is Omegas. Omegas are the strongest, fastest, and pretty much live the longest. Omegas are faster and stronger. About as fast and as strong as a locomotive. Not as strong as, Basically, betas are way different than alphas. Now, alphas are as rare as betas are as rare as alphas are extremely rare. Not too rare, in fact, because it's only about it's only about 500 betas in the whole world. No, what was it? Yeah, so it's about 500 alphas in the whole world, and that's not really rare, but mostly alphas do die daily because they're, the main target for werewolf hunters. Because if you kill an alpha that's turned somebody, the wolf curse on that person that was turned dies down and makes that wolf weaker and makes it pretty much an easier target for werewolf hunters. Basically, Deku will be incredibly strong because he's going to be an alpha. Alphas are way stronger than betas. I mean, way stronger. And can definitely take down a human with just one smack. Just one smack. Pretty much scratching their whole skull with just one smack. Or even a flick in the throat. Basically, Omegas can do a lot more things than betas can. Betas do have all the abilities as a beta, but they're just dialed down and not as strong as the alphas. Alpha's strength in category, like the alpha at full physical peak, like an alpha that was already physically fit as a human, but now their werewolf gene activated. Now they're basically about as strong as, let's say, they're about as strong as, let's say, Wonder Woman, because Wonder Woman's pretty strong and she can go toe-to-toe with Superman. Basically, Omegas are as strong as, let's say, they're strong enough, on full moon, they're strong enough to be able to stop a full-on locomotive at full speed with their bare hands. But it would leave them scarred and beaten up, but they can still do it. Now, Omega on not a full moon and just Omega on their human form, they can lift about, let's say, 12,000 pounds. Deku in his human form can lift about 12,000 pounds of, force. Basically, being able to punch with the force of about a monster truck. So basically, yeah. So I base that off because Deku can lift a monster truck because a monster truck weighs 12,000 pounds. So yeah, basically Deku can lift 12,000 pounds. An average Omega can lift 12,000 pounds, and also they can stop a locomotive traveling at full speed. basically, that's in terms of how strong Omega is. Omega is fast. It's as fast as a, let's say, about as fast as a, let's say, um, hmm, about as fast as a military jet. Basically, pretty fast. Now, Omegas and Betas are similar because Betas and Omegas can run at the same speed. So, you know, Omegas don't trump Betas in speed because Betas and Omegas are at the same speed level. Now, the only thing that gives a Omega a edge in racing or speed in a on an Omega, on a Beta's level, basically they can jump a lot higher than a Omega. And also a Omega's, Omega and a Beta. Sorry, I get those confused. Betas can run at the same speed as a Omega, but Omega can jump a lot higher or a lot farther than a Beta. Betas, basically the only difference between a Beta and an Omega. A Beta is weaker than an Omega, and also their hearing is a lot weaker than an Omega's as well. But they can still hear at a level of a wolf's, speed and calculation. Basically, yeah, so a werewolf and Omega are very similar, but Omega is way stronger and way more powerful than a Beta can ever think. So after me explaining the two different ones that are, the stronger ones, let's move on to the, the Scavengers, or the Scavengers of the werewolf world. They're called Scavengers because they're way weaker than a Beta or an Omega. Because, like, you'll be real lucky to become a Beta, but a Omega, you have to be born a Omega. So you can't be turned into an Omega. So basically, Betas and Omegas are the only ones that can turn people. But with Scavengers, they can't turn anybody. But they can be basically how you become a Scavenger is if you're a default of a Beta trying to turn you. Now, sometimes a beta can turn somebody and it can go completely sideways. They can turn somebody and it can be successful, or they can turn somebody and that person becomes some sort of monster based off their emotions. So a person has to be in has to have their emotions in check. Because if a person's if a person's like crazy, or like they're having some sort of mental disease, it's very risky for a beta to turn them. Omega, if he bites somebody, that's it. They turn perfectly into a werewolf. It's no, backdraw. But if a beta bites somebody, that person becomes some sort of monster called a scavenger. They become a monster imbuing their worst or desires, or their worst, fears. Basically, them becoming monsters, mindless creatures of the night that can only transform on a black moon. Basically, when the moon's not showing. So basically, they get powers. So basically, it's 4 different type of scavengers. It's scavengers that become lizard-type creatures if the person has some sort of greed or pittiness, or has murdered somebody for out of no reason. And then it's the second one that can turn into some sort of wolf-like creature that basically resembles something like a Teen Wolf from the TV show or the movie. And that creature can basically is a lot more weaker than a beta or a werewolf, or like an omega. Basically, they can easily be taken down by an omega or a beta, but they're incredibly way more, and I mean way more crazy. Like they're way crazier, and also they heal a lot more faster than an omega or a beta. So they basically use almost suicide attempts to take down their prey. Yeah, so basically they're also savage. They basically eat anything, even werewolf flesh, even other scavengers' flesh. They're pretty much savages. They're monsters upon monsters. And then it's the third type of scavengers that resemble humans, but can also basically every pore of their body emits acid. Basically, them just trying to touch people and burn them alive. So it's pretty gruesome. And also, it's our fourth one is the most dangerous one. Not the strongest, but the most dangerous one. Pretty much a creature-like being that basically emit spikes from their body that can stab through people. And they use them at every chance they got. Even on children. They kill babies, animals, anything that moves or has a heartbeat. They kill it without a single chance. And they don't even eat it. They just kill it for sport. Or just for entertainment. Or just for nothing, actually. So basically, a scavenger is the most weakest of werewolves. Or the weakest of monsters. So yeah. So basically, the weakest of the scavengers has to be maybe the acid skin one. So yeah. So scavengers are pretty rare, but not as rare as a omega. So yeah. So basically, betas have to be very careful by who they turn. They have to make sure that person is at full, you know, health in the brain. They don't have to be at, physical peak health. Like, they don't have to be perfect. They just have to be, in a good enough mindscape to become a werewolf. So Omega is not as flawed as a beta. So yeah, so basically Omega is just stronger than a beta and doesn't have any extra abilities. It's just stronger than a beta. So basically, a beta can kill an alpha, but when a beta kills an alpha, basically that alpha's strength is imbued to that omega. Alpha's strength is imbued onto that beta, and that beta basically becomes an alpha as well. And they become as strong as an alpha. Also, on top of their strength of being a beta before, making them stronger than an alpha. So basically, an alpha also has to be born alpha to become a full-blooded alpha. So yeah. So basically, Deku was born alpha because both of his parents are going to be alphas. Now, we start our story off about 500 years before Deku was born. We start our story about a, you know, a werewolf called just Josiah. This werewolf will basically be Deku's great-great-grand ancestor. Basically, this werewolf will look exactly like Deku. Like, it'd be uncanny. It'll just look like Deku, but a lot more older, like with a beard and stuff. And also with green hair. Still, so basically, this werewolf would be in, Japan before the whole entire, everything happened. Basically being in Japan and walking around and eventually finding a woman named Inko. And this woman would be Inko's great-great-great ancestor. Basically, they, these werewolves come together and they eventually have a family. And those ancestors eventually hook up with other Omegas on top of Omegas, making a full-blooded pack of only Omegas, meaning that every year, or every century, their family forces their children to marry a Omega, or any type of Omega. Not a Beta, but they have to marry a Omega to keep the Omegas, or the line of Omegas, alive. Basically, Inko eventually is like the outcome of these centuries and years of breeding with alphas. Now, Inko is about, let's say, 20-ish. About 25 or 24. Basically, she's, in Japan, working in a normal job. Basically being some sort of accountant or some sort of helper of the state or something. Basically being paid pretty well. Basically, she is going through life, basically being told by her parents to try to find a Omega. Now, werewolves can actually sense each other by smell. A werewolf gets off a certain smell that only other wolves can smell. Basically, Omega smells like, to werewolves, like let's say like a clean dog or something. A beta smells like a wet dog, and a scavenger smells like death. Just death. So basically, Inko finds a Omega in, Dago Beach before it got all dirty and stuff. So basically, Inko talks to him, and we skip about a couple months later, and they started dating. Because Inko, has some game. Basically, she, talks to him and gets to know him and actually falls in love with him. And also she sees this as a plus because normally about 10% of people in her family don't want to marry other Omegas because they have nothing in common with them. So this is actually a good choice for Inko because she actually has a lot of stuff in common with Asashi, and basically marries him and has Deku. Basically, since both of them are Omegas, they can have a full-blooded Omega's child, and that's, Inko's parents are happy for her and also for the child, because the child won't grow up human or weak or become a half-breed like other alphas before Inko's family. So basically, Deku pretty much grows up being taught the wolf way and being taught how to control his wolf form, being taught not to transform at worst times, because it's a lot more crucial for alphas to turn, gently or turn at a designated area, because alphas, their wolf form is a lot more stronger than betas or scavengers. Basically, they can transform into 6-foot tall monsters, not abominations, monsters that resemble werewolves from, let's say let's say Van Helsing movie. Have you seen the Van Helsing movie? That movie's fire, bro, and the werewolves in that movie are fire, bro. They look amazing. Basically, these werewolves have snouts. They're really tall, and they have hind legs, and they have sharp claws that can pretty much cut through the middle with ease. Basically, these forms are what gives them the edge over a beta. Basically, them able to be, do anything in their full moon or their wolf state. Now, on normal nights or a normal day, basically Omegas can still transform into their wolf form. It's just that this wolf form resembles something of the teen wolf form, but just with more sleek and silver hair. Basically, this form is kind of like the Wolfman form from the Wolfman movie from 2014, I think. Basically, they still have hind legs, but they're just as tall as an average human. So yeah, basically, a full moon Omega can do a lot more things than a normal night or a normal day transformation of a Omega. Basically, since I want to make this a little bit more interesting, I don't want to make Deku too OP because he's an Omega. Basically, Deku will have trouble controlling his forms, and also some Omegas can't transform during the day like others, so Deku won't be able to unlock that form I just described to you. On Deku can't transform into his day form, but he can only transform into his pretty much full moon form. So basically, Deku can do a lot of things, but he just can't transform into his day form like other Omegas can. Basically, Inko doesn't see this as a problem, and Sashi doesn't think this as a problem as well, because Deku can still transform into his full moon state. Since Deku if the first transformation a born Omega has to go through is when they turn 13. Deku turns 13. At this point, Deku was, pretty good with Bakugo. Basically, at this point, Bakugo thought Deku was quirkless because, Deku didn't show anything of a quirk. Because Omegas have to wait until they're 13 for them to become a full-blown werewolf or a Omega. So Deku has to wait, and pretty much on his 13th birthday, Deku is chained up on pretty much in in a penthouse their parents own, because their parents lived for hundreds of years, and they do have great jobs, so they have multiple houses and multiple estates around the, whole entire world. So basically, it's a one warehouse or penthouse, or cabin in Japan somewhere in the forest areas or in the mountains, and basically chain up Deku in the attic there. Basically, they wait for Deku to transform, and they see it happen. Deku starts transforming into his 6-foot tall black, blue, 6-foot tall black haired transformation. So guys, basically, I added some music in the background at this point, 'cause my editor, please do that. So basically, Deku will basically be transforming at this point, showing his 6-foot form, his 6-foot werewolf form looking like this. Basically, this werewolf form would have silverish blackish hair, with green glowing eyes. Basically, this form would be, pretty much rolling around the place. And now at this state, his form was about, let's say, about 2 feet taller than him in canon. So let's say this werewolf form would be about 5 feet tall. So basically, this werewolf form will be scrubbing around the place trying to get through the chains. But at this point, Deku wasn't strong enough because he wasn't old enough. Because this is the first time of Deku transforming. So we skip about a couple other years when Deku's about 16. When Deku gets his wolf form or his werewolf abilities, Deku starts getting trained immediately by his father and his mother. Deku eventually, is taught by his parents, and pretty much his parents, tell Deku to just say for his quirk's sake that he's a late bloomer and blah blah blah. Basically, Deku says that at school one day about when because Deku gets off school for about a whole entire year for him to focus and, attain his abilities. But Deku's strength is still out of whack as well, because Deku doesn't know how to control his strength sometimes when he gets angry. That's the main thing with Deku, because Deku gets angry. When Deku gets angry, his strength or his wolf form gets out of control, and Deku goes rabid, or goes insane. So basically, we skip about when Deku is in school one day, about when Deku's about 14, after him having a year off school, basically being homeschooled so he can train at home with his parents to find out how strong Deku is, or to control his wolf form. Basically, Deku, goes to school the first time in about a year, and Deku walks into class. Bakugo being there, Deku looks at Bakugo, and Bakugo says, "Quirkless nerd," under his, mouth. Basically, that day, they go to the gym to pretty much, throw some balls, or, have, a monthly or like a yearly checkup on their physical status or something or whatever. They say don't use quirks, and pretty much Deku is getting picked on by Bakugo, saying, "What's up, quirkless nerd? Where you go for a year? Were you staying home because you were afraid that you get beaten up by me? You're such a wimp." Pretty much Deku gets really angry at this. Basically, his eyes glowing, and Bakugo saying, "What is that? Is that your quirk, nerd? You can glow your eyes? That's the lamest quirk I've ever seen. You're practically quirkless." Deku says, "I'll show you." Pretty much, the gym teacher hearing this saying, "Azuku, you can't use your quirk. It's mainly for just physical status without a quirk." And Deku says, "Whatever." Pretty much, being picked on by Bakugo, and Deku just going against the coaches, pretty much stuff. Pretty much Bakugo says, "Come on, Deku, I know you're not that weak." Pretty much Deku being super angry at this. Deku throws the ball, and pretty much he throws it at normal strength. Pretty much Deku was already training with his parents and his physical strength without his werewolf powers. Basically, Bakugo saying, "Is that all you got? You're so weak, Deku." Pretty much Deku says, "Give me the ball again." And the teacher says, "Whatever, Deku." And pretty much gives it to him. And pretty much the teacher did know Deku from a year ago, so he just thinks he's quirkless. So basically, Deku chucks the ball at full strength by his Omega, powers, and basically chucks it about, let's say, a good 60 feet in the air. And basically, the teacher is super surprised at how strong Deku is, and slaps back to reality, saying, "You can't use quirks, Deku." And pretty much Deku says, "I didn't know. I never did that before." Pretty much lying straight to the teacher's face. The teacher says, "Okay, so you're a late bloomer, I guess. I've heard about this. I heard about this, but didn't know I ever meet somebody that's a late bloomer." And pretty much, takes Deku to the nurse, and Deku, goes home to pretty much goes home. Basically, Deku's mom gets angry at him and says, "You used your quirk at school after they told you not to." Pretty much Deku says, "I wanted to show up that kid, the blonde-haired kid that bullied me." Pretty much Inko stops the car and saying, "You're being bullied." And Deku says, "Ah." And pretty much Deku never told his parents about Bakugo bullying him, so Inko and Sashi didn't know. Deku starts talking to his parents, talking about how when he was, before, I turned to a werewolf, or my wolf gene activated, I was being bullied by Bakugo. Pretty much, Deku's parents being super angry at this and says, "So you didn't tell us you're being bullied, and you just endured it? We could have helped you." And pretty much Deku said, What would you do? Did you beat up Bakugo's parents?" and Deku's dad says, I would kill them. Basically, Deku's saying, what? Basically, Deku starts, talking and saying, you wouldn't kill their parent, you wouldn't kill them. Pretty much Bakugo's dad's saying, whatever. Pretty much, about to say yes, but didn't want to scare his son. Pretty much Bakugo's dad, Deku's dad, sorry guys, Deku's dad, pretty much starts talking about how, you should have told us, we could have done something, we could have, prevented it happening anymore. Now Bakugo is too familiar with bullying you, and he's going to be bullying you for the rest of your life if you don't stand up to him. Deku says, I'm going to stand up to him eventually, and pretty much Deku's dad says, the next time you see that kid, stand up to him and beat his, and pretty much Deku's mom says, don't listen to your father. Try to talk things out with Bakugo. If he does bully you again, just do what your dad does. And pretty much Deku's dad says, yeah, you better beat his butt, or I was about to say something else, but it's going to be very PG-13, but yeah, basically Deku gets told by his parents to stand up to to stand up to Bakugo the next time you see him, and then not let him push you around. Deku says, yeah, okay, and pretty much they skip the next day. Now basically, Deku, avoids Bakugo for about the next couple of years, and we skip to Deku when he's about 16, and it's about, the end of the school year, of when Deku's about to leave and about to get one for all. But in this universe, Deku now obviously doesn't get one for all because, he's a werewolf. So basically, Deku, goes back home, basically, after the last school day. Bakugo pretty much sees Deku in class, and, that day Deku signs up for UA. Now, everybody's seen Deku's quirk before and says, he can probably go to UA, because he has some sort of strength quirk. Basically, Bakugo says, I'm the strongest kid in this class. Pretty much Deku's saying, yeah, right. Pretty much Deku, at this point, being a lot more bulkier and fit than he was in canon. Basically, having the same body that he had doing the 10-month art training with All Might in canon. Pretty much Deku looks at Bakugo, and Bakugo basically looks at Deku saying, what did you say to me, nerd? And Deku says, I said you aren't the strongest kid in this class. Pretty much Bakugo gets angry and says, so, who is, you? And Deku stands up and says, yeah, me. Back up before I have to beat you. And pretty much Bakugo gets angry and says, you can try. And basically Deku grabs Bakugo by the shoulders and chucks him into the wall. Bakugo gets back up and throwing an explosion at Deku, stunning Deku back, and pretty much they're about to, straight up fight. The teacher breaks this up and says, stop right now. Basically sending Bakugo and Deku to the, principal's office. The principal's office saying it's the last day of school and I don't really want to deal with this, so Bakugo and Deku, I'm just going to give you a warning and put this on your permanent record, okay? So just don't fight anymore, jeez. Pretty much sending them out of the class, sending them out of his office about to, get ready to do some work before he leaves the school for the rest of the summer, for the rest of the year. Basically, summer hits and, or what was it, the 9-month or the 10-month art training begins, and basically Deku, basically stands up to Bakugo, telling his dad about how he stood up to Bakugo, and pretty much his dad's saying, it's been a couple years, but you finally stood up to him. I'm proud of you, son. Pretty much Deku, trained with his father doing the 10-month art training at Deku Beach still, basically, training there, and Deku's dad telling Deku, that's the first time I met your mom. This is the first place where I met your mom. Basically, Deku's saying, so you flirted with mom here? And basically, Deku's dad says, no, your mom came on to me. Basically, Deku says, that's pretty weird. Pretty much, Deku's dad tells Deku, get ready for, a little bit of sparring. So they spar. And before I get into any further details when they're sparring, basically Deku's dad does have a silver, like a completely silver hair transformation. So yeah, and Deku's mother also has a wolf transformation. And wolf transformations are kind of, furry-ish. Female wolf transformations are kind of furry-ish. If you get my drift, wolf transformations have female attributes. So basically, Deku, Deku basically, trains with his parents. Trains with his parents, then in there train with his mother to focus on his senses, and train with his father to focus on his strength and his endurance and his speed. Now Deku's as fast as all the Omega Wolves, normal speed and strength, like I just explained. Basically, Deku, being pretty fast. Deku being as fast as a military jet. Now, basically Deku, at this point, has, and this military jet speed is only be used in, Deku's full moon form. So yeah. So basically, guys, should I just keep werewolves like a singular thing in this universe, or should I introduce other supernatural beings? Just quote me in the comments or tell me in the comments. So yeah. So basically, Deku goes to UA after the 10-month art training with his parents. Basically his parents trying to, cheer up Deku. And basically, this universe, Deku's father is actually a pro hero. So basically, Deku's dad is a pro hero, and Deku's dad is about the more scared pro heroes in the world. Basically, being the number, let's say, 11th hero, the number 11th hero. Basically, Deku's dad is pretty famous, or pretty, well-known, what was it, pro hero, and on the internet, people be speculating about how this pro hero, the number 11th hero, maybe is a werewolf. But basically, Deku in this canon is actually still going for the number one hero spot, and Deku kind of, achieved that. It's just that Deku's dad doesn't want to bring too much attention to him, and, try to, he doesn't want to bring too much attention to him and put his family in jeopardy, because in this universe, werewolf hunters still, exist and are running rapid. So yeah. So basically, Deku, goes to UA after the 2-month art training and walks into Class 1A. Now, Deku goes into Class 1A and, sits down. Basically, before that, Deku actually did get a recommendation because his father was a pro hero, so Deku didn't go to the entrance exams. So Deku, just went to the, recommendation stuff and basically, got in pretty quickly. Now, Deku walks in there, meeting a couple familiar faces from the, test, seeing that it was Todoroki there, Momo, and a couple other students that were, brought in by recommendations in there. Deku sits down, pretty much, looking around, and seeing that, what was it? Seeing that, what was it? A couple other students there are just, pretty much, just sitting there and waiting for Zawa to show up. Deku sits down, pretty much being looked at by the girls because Deku has a pretty good built body, and basically Deku wasn't wearing his UA, jacket. He was just wearing his white shirt and having his UA, jacket or coat wrapped around his waist. Basically, Deku, sits down, and basically Deku looks at Momo and looks around in the class and smells a certain scent, a weird scent. Deku smells, pretty much closer and closer, and smells something similar to Beta. Now, basically, a couple of Deku's, friends from other werewolf families that were mainly just betas, omegas, and mixed in with a couple of humans, or humans with werewolf or wolf-like quirks. Basically, being a normal wolf bloodline. Basically, Deku's closest friend when he was younger, being a beta, and Deku, basically, knowing that smell very, closely. So Deku was told by his parents about the whole time, things about a beta and an omega and the scent of a beta and an omega, and but also telling Deku about monsters and beings that were like abominations, aka called Scavengers. Now, basically, what was it? Deku, basically, Deku was told that it was a cure for Scavengers, but it was very rare and can only be found in Antarctica or somewhere in the, North Pole. So yeah, it was pretty rare to come by, and mostly when you were a scavenger, you had to be killed, or you would kill yourself because werewolves wouldn't be so cruel as to let a human go on being some sort of monster like a scavenger. So yeah. So basically, Deku, looks around and basically sniffs out the beta that's there, the wolf that's there, and basically stumbles upon Jiro's seat. Jiro looks at Deku and says, "Are you good?" And Deku says, yeah, I'm okay." And pretty much, Deku, looks at Jiro a little bit more and basically sees two other girls next to Jiro in the seat, seeing that the smells kind of whisked away or kind of spread around. So he doesn't know if all three of these women have, if all three of these women are werewolves or they're just, one of them are werewolves and their scent is just everywhere. Now Deku tries to focus on the scent, but he gets interrupted by pretty much what was it? Bakugo, because Bakugo walks into class next to Deku and says, "What's up, nerd?" Pretty much walking over to Deku saying, "So where have you been? You were on the entrance exams. Did you get in here by a bribe?" Basically, Deku says, "I got a recommendation." Bakugo stuns. Stuns like this says, "You're a quirkless nerd." Pretty much Deku says, "I wasn't quirkless when I beat you up." Bakugo said, "We never fully fought. You just got the upper hand on me because I didn't expect you to grab me." Pretty much throwing an explosion in Bakugo's. If Deku seeing Bakugo charge up a explosion. Deku looks at Bakugo, and basically Bakugo looks at Deku straight in the eyes, and Deku's eyes glow bright green, and Deku's fingernails start growing into nails, or pretty much claws, and looks at Bakugo, and Bakugo looks at Deku, and they are both about to fight, but they get interrupted by Aizawa, and Aizawa explains to the class they're going outside for, quirk assessments, or to see how their quirks are, to see if they're fit to be in the UA. So basically, Deku and Baku and everybody else go outside and get into their gym clothes. Like Deku gets into his gym clothes and gets ready for the, you know, quirk assessments. Deku gets ready and pretty much everybody else gets, started. Deku gets thrown the ball to to him by Zawa after Bakugo goes and says to throw the ball. Deku takes off his shirt, pretty much stretching, and all the girls looking at Deku's, pecs and abs, pretty much saying he's pretty hot, gawking at Deku. Deku basically takes up the ball and, chucks it as hard as he can. Basically, them seeing, everybody in the class seeing some sort of black veins appear on Deku's arm that he just threw the ball with. And Deku's eyes going bright green. Deku throws the ball pretty far, as hard as he can, doing it in his human form, basically throwing it about throwing it about 200 feet in the air. No, scratch that, 2,000 feet in the air. Basically, throwing it extremely far. Pretty much everybody, shocked at this because Deku made like a sound wave, or like a whoosh, like how he did in Canon. Basically making some sort of, boom as he threw it. Deku, for the long jump, aces it, obviously. For the race, Deku dominates everybody, including Ida. And for the grip test strength, Deku gets the highest score, so Deku in first place, and everybody else gets a good score. Mineta gets expelled, so Mineta gets expelled, and I think that's where I'm going to leave it off, guys. Deku goes home after that, pretty much walking into his house, and his parents saying, "You want to have a movie night?" Now, basically, Deku saying, "Yeah," and pretty much, them watching a movie. But, Deku's dad says, "I gotta go to work real quick," and basically, Deku's dad gets into his hero costume and sprints out the front door. And Deku's dad's hero costume is really cool, and Deku also wants to, pretty much base his hero costume off of his father's design. Deku's father's hero costume is something as simple as, well, All Might's. Basically just having Deku's father having some sort of black tactical gear on, but also having some sort of wolf crest. That's his family crest on Deku's dad's side for his, logo. Basically, Deku's father also having fingerless gloves, and Deku's father also having, moonstones. Now, basically, moonstones in this universe actually increase a wolf's strength by tenfold, including by a beta. So if a beta eats about 2 of these moonstones, they become as strong as a alpha. And basically, for alpha to eat a moonstone, it basically makes them godlike. So basically, you know, it's pretty rare for and also moonstones are extremely rare. Like, they're so rare, in fact, that mainly people don't even, werewolf lines or bloodlines don't even know about them. They just think they're fictional or fake. So basically, yeah. So basically, Deku's father has like a whole entire treasure chest of moonstones. Basically, moonstones have to be ingested by a werewolf, and moonstones are actual, like, what was it? Like gym rocks. Like, they're kind of like, they're made out of sodium of some sorts, but the sodium's imbued by the pretty much energy or like the light from a moon. Basically, these moon rocks basically just imbued by the curse of the moon that's imbued onto a werewolf. Basically, made by a couple of packs of witches or any type of witch can make a moon rock just by a sodium rock and just a little bit of the light for the light from the moon on a full moon. Basically, it's been about 5,000 of these have been made, but only about 500 of them are in the world today. So basically, Deku, Deku's dad has about, let's say, 200 of them in his treasure chest. So Deku's dad has these for Deku and also for him for the next generation. So basically, Deku's, father, Deku, Deku's dad leaves, and Deku has a movie night with his mom, and basically when Deku's curfew gets, young, or when Deku's mom falls asleep on the couch, Deku tucks his mom in and pretty much goes to sleep that night. Deku wakes up the next night, and I'm gonna leave it off here, guys. So, guys, in this what if, I'm gonna be putting in a lot more lore into the werewolf side of the story, and also making Deku deal with, actual wolf problems. Like my other what if, I just made Deku deal with, I just made Deku too OP, and I wanted to make this story a little bit more about Deku's lore and his family, and Deku's father's family, and Deku's mother's family. So yeah, basically Deku's family is gonna be, explored, or Deku's new family is gonna be more explored in this what if, as much as the other stuff. So yeah. So guys, I hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys like, subscribe, and comment down below what you want to see next. So hope you guys have a blessed day. Bye. And yeah, again, hope you guys have a blessed day. See you guys later. Bye, deuces.